Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to a video where I'm going to be attempting to build the cheapest possible PC you can possibly build to run Battlefield 4 at 1080p at about medium settings at 30 frames per second. This video was requested to be done by Jammin Jared, and if you have a request like he did, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. If I like them, I will try to get around to it. So yeah, just leave them in the comment section down below. I read all the comments, so yeah, just leave them down below. Now, this build comes to the market at about $380, and I probably could have done a couple little things to make it a little bit more cheaper, but I think that, you know, spending that extra couple of dollars gave us that extra performance, so I just figured $380, that seemed cheap enough for most of you guys. It's cheaper than the next gen consoles, and it seemed like a good route to go with as far as the price was concerned. Now, with all my rambling out of the way, let's get right into this with the CPU. For the CPU of the build, I actually went with the APU route. I went with an AMD A10 7850K. It's a 3.7 GHz quad-core CPU, retailing for about $170. Yes, the majority of the build is going towards this APU. Now, if you guys don't know what an APU is, it's pretty much a mixture of a CPU and a GPU. The integrated graphics card of this APU outperforms the Intel HD 4000, which is Intel's best integrated graphics by an extreme degree. This integrated graphics can actually run games really well. And when I mean really well, I'm saying games like Tomb Raider, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Witcher 2 at 1080p at real solid settings and real solid frame rates. Obviously, you're not going to be maxing out the higher end games, but still, you're going to be running them and you're going to be playing them at a playable setting. Kind of like what the PS4 offers. It doesn't max out Battlefield 4 at 1080p. It actually runs Battlefield 4 at 1600 by 900, and it doesn't get 60 frames per second. You're going to be getting that type of performance with this PC, and that makes sense because it does come at the similar price point of a console. It's actually a little bit cheaper, but that's hearsay. And as far as the CPU goes, this is a 3.7 GHz quad-core CPU. You're going to be able to do your editing, your live streaming, all that kind of stuff. You can also overclock this CPU. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're getting a pretty nice CPU cooler. Hyper 212 Evo is pretty good. That's one that I always recommend because it's affordable and it works fairly well. Also, with the APU, you could go for a dual graphics solution, which means if you buy something like an R7 240 or an R7 250, those are sub $100 graphics cards, you can actually get more performance out of the APU with this dual graphics setup and get about 20 frames per second more on a lot of titles like Battlefield, Tomb Raider, like I said, and it's a really great solution, and you have that option open in the future if you do want to get more performance. Moving on to the motherboard, I went with the Gigabyte GA F2A88X-UP4. I'll have all the parts, numbers, and all that kind of stuff in the description box down below, so just check that out. There's also a PC part picker link down below, so check that out as well. This motherboard's loaded with a lot of features, actually. You got a lot of PCI slots, SATA 6, USB 3. For $99, again, this is a huge chunk of the build, but I thought this was a good way to go with for the APU. Since we did go with one of the higher-end APUs, it makes sense to get a decently high-end motherboard as well. And this supports up to DDR3 2133, which is kind of good because you need that higher speed RAM for the APU. So that's good. And like I said, SATA 6, USB 3, all for $90. Really good motherboard. And it's from Gigabyte. They have a really great warranty policy. So I just thought this was an overall winner. And that's why we put it in this build. For the RAM, I went with Corsair 4GB, one 4GB stick of RAM at 1600 MHz, $42. Like I've said in prior videos, RAM is really expensive. We could only opt to go with 4GB in this build if we wanted to keep the cost down. But the motherboard does have multiple RAM slots, so you can always just pick up another kit of this RAM 6 months to a year down the line, but that's definitely something you want to do in the near future. It's only $40, so I think that's something, you know, 6 months to a year down the line, I think that's an easy add-on to make, so that's why I kind of tend to go with 4GB with these cheaper builds, because a lot of you guys, you know how to add more RAM. It's one of the easiest things to do, and it's not too big of a hassle. Whereas if I went with a cheaper motherboard, that would be a hassle to change out the entire motherboard. Moving on to the storage, I went with Seagate Barracuda 1TB. It's $50 for 1TB of storage space. Thought this was a pretty good deal. And yeah, 1TB of space, not much more I can say about that. Finally, for the case, I went with the Diablotech Diamond ATX mid-tower case. This also comes with a 400-watt power supply. Yes, it's not 80 plus certified, but think about it this way. All you have in here is a CPU. That's it. You don't have a graphics card, and not And not a graphics card at all. And even if you add something like an an R7, excuse me, 250, you're gonna be perfectly fine because an R7 250 doesn't even need a 6-pin power connector. A 400 watt power supply like this, yes, it's not the best quality, but it shouldn't have a problem. If you go and buy something like an R9 260X or an R9 270X, that's going to be a problem because, you know, this is a 400 watt power supply. It's not 80 plus certified. I wouldn't do something crazy like that. But if you get something like an R7 250 down the line to go for that dual graphics solution, that won't be a problem. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button, like this video. Give me your video recommendations down below. I really like this idea from Jam and Jared. So yeah, thanks a lot, Jam and Jared, and I hope you guys like this video. As always, PC part picker link is down below. All the part list is down below. And I will catch you all later. Peace.